Next Pats podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. My goodness, this team just continues to slather on the storylines, even as the season continues to be an absolute abomination. At 2-9, not much to talk about when it comes to the X's and O's of specific football games, but there's plenty to talk about with this organization big picture. And today we will start by asking the question, did Bill Belichick just give us a clue that the Mac Jones era is officially over? We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. We're fresh off the Patriots practice field. And while we were out there, we were allowed to see a portion of the team's practice. So beyond just the stretching period, which we oftentimes get. And Mac Jones didn't take a single snap at the quarterback position in practice. Bailey Zappi took the vast majority of quarterback reps, throwing to tight ends and receivers. And Malik Cunningham looked like the number 2, taking a handful of snaps of his own. So is the Mac Jones era officially over? Bill Belichick at his Wednesday press conference said he wasn't prepared to announce a starter, but it looked like, based on the media availability portion of the first practice of the week, for whatever that's worth, it looks like Mac Jones will take a seat. Bailey Zappi will start. And maybe, just maybe, Malik Cunningham is the number 2. If this is the end of the Mac Jones era, let's just do a quick blow-by of what we've learned. And this is something that we will continue to touch on over the course of weeks and months as we lead up to the draft. And we talk about which quarterbacks the Patriots should be interested in, potentially free agency, which veteran quarterbacks might the Patriots and whoever's leading this team moving forward want to invest in. And I come back to the 3 Ps, the good old Daniel Jeremiah 3 Ps: play caller, playmakers, and protection. What you need for young quarterbacks to succeed. We talked to the NFL media guru when it comes to the draft about Mac Jones, and those 3 things as it related to the Patriots situation that Mac Jones was stepping into. And at the time, during Mac Jones's rookie season, many would agree that they didn't have enough there. Maybe they had 1 P checked off with the play caller and Josh McDaniels, and that was it. And since then, I think you could argue he hasn't had a single P since. Playmakers, play callers, protection. Now, I would argue that Bill O'Brien is still a competent play caller, but I believe, additionally, that because the situation is so broken offensively for the Patriots, they haven't been able to pass protect. Just look at last game. They had 8 true dropbacks between Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. 8 passes that weren't quick game or screens. That's not an NFL passing game. And so I think it's really handcuffed Bill O'Brien, what he's had personnel-wise, including what he's had at quarterback. So I almost make that one like an N/A, a not available when it comes to the play caller check mark. But has he had enough protection over the course of his career? 3 years. Has he had enough in the way of playmakers over the course of his career? 3 years. 3 different play callers over the course of 3 years. So whatever the Patriots do next at quarterback, I think one of the lessons you need to take away is you need to have all 3 of those things checked in much greater fashion, in a much more effective manner than you did in 3 years with Mac Jones. I mean, think back to his rookie year. Think about just the protection. We understood he didn't have playmakers. But you have Josh McDaniels. He's still, through the first third of his rookie season, even more than that. I believe the story I wrote, I'll have to go back and check the timeline on this, but I believe it was through his first 6 games as a rookie, Mac Jones was on record pace for quarterback hits in a season. He was going to set, as far as the data that the NFL had been able to compile, and this went back to, I believe, the late 90s, early 2000s, when they started tracking quarterback hits. So beyond sacks, they started tallying up the quarterback hits year over year. Mac Jones was on pace to set a new record as a rookie. So they didn't take care of him in that regard then. They didn't have enough in the way of playmakers then. We talked to NFL evaluators, opposing head coaches, opposing defensive assistants that all looked at the Patriots after that rookie season. We were wondering, hey, is there any way Mac Jones could maybe not be Joe Burrow, but sniff that level, right? Get into the top 10 in the league if you just surround him with the right guys. And everyone agreed unanimously you get much more production out of him if you gave him more. So whatever the Patriots do, draft one highly at the quarterback position, sign one in free agency. You need to do more in terms of surrounding that player with playmakers. You need to do more in terms of figuring out what you have in terms of protection. We know what the tackle situation is. Michael Wenhu's not under contract. Trent Brown's not under contract. Cole Strange has not performed consistently. Sidney So has not performed consistently in pass protection. He's a 4th-round rookie. Maybe that gets better. But right now, when you're looking at it, David Andrews is your only sure thing along the offensive line, and he's on the other side of 30 right now. How good can you feel about dropping a young quarterback into that situation? So you need to do more, even if you draft a much more physically talented quarterback than what you've had in Mac Jones. Then when it comes to scouting, if this is the end of the Mac Jones era, when it comes to what you're looking for in these quarterbacks, physically, I think it's pretty clear. You need someone with a little bit more mobility because the situation's not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to have all 3 Ps. You should do more to make sure that you're getting close in terms of having all 3. But you're going to have injuries. You're going to have situations where it doesn't look great consistently. And so you need someone with a little bit more physical ability. You need someone who can move, period. And we talked at length about the importance of the quarterback scramble in 2023, and it looks like beyond in our last podcast when we discussed Jaden Daniels at length. So go back to that one, listen to that one if you want more details on just how important it is to have a quarterback who could scramble today. But how about when it comes to some of the intangible stuff? Just speaking with some Patriot sources over the last few weeks, I think one thing that even they would acknowledge that they missed on, and it's probably easy to say now, but what they might have missed on with Mac Jones was his ability to handle adversity. Now, are they to blame? Is Bill Belichick to blame in some ways about ladling on the adversity over the course of 3 years to the degree that it was ladled on? Yes. He didn't need to see as much adversity, in my opinion, as he did see. If he gave him a little bit more, you could have made his life a little bit easier. However, that said, what they would acknowledge now is it's really difficult to be able to project how a player is going to handle adversity unless you've seen them handle it. And with Mac Jones as essentially a 1-year starter at Alabama, playing with All-Americans across the board, throwing to Jalen Waddle and others, Devontae Smith, guys that are stars in the NFL now. You roll your way to a national championship. That's not a lot of on-field adversity. Did he see some off-field adversity? Sure, you could say that. Had to fight to win a job eventually. Had to beat out Bryce Young, 5-star recruit, big time high school quarterback coming in. Everybody assumes he's going to be the next guy. And you hold him off and you win that competition after serving as a backup for multiple years. So yeah, sure, there's some adversity involved there. There's some resiliency shown by Mac Jones there. But it's different when you're on the field in real time and the bullets are live. How do you handle it? You can't know. It's impossible to know unless you've seen a player handle it. And I think lucky for the Patriots, if they are looking at quarterbacks at the top of this year's draft, both Caleb Williams and Drake May have seen on the field adversity. The situations that those guys have been in have not been perfect. May especially. May's not working with the same kinds of athletes that Williams is. But even Williams, his protection hasn't always been perfect. He's had to put the team on his back. And so as they do their due diligence on all these quarterbacks, maturity, leadership, how you respond when things go poorly, to me, is a massive, massive part of the equation that the Patriots are going to have to weigh. And that should be one of the main takeaways from the Mac Jones era. We're going to talk a little bit more about quarterback maturity with Matt Cassel, phenomenal guest. Our guy, Matt Cassel, former USC Trojan. He's on with us to talk about Caleb Williams, what he's shown on the field and off. Cassel actually had a chance to meet with, talk to Caleb Williams earlier this year as part of the NBC Big Ten crew. And so when Caleb Williams and the USC Trojans had their game at Notre Dame, Cassel was all over that. Again, knows Williams, knows people around Williams, understands what it means to play in that program, and has been following very closely how he's handled it, Caleb Williams, over the course of the last couple of years. But we have a great discussion about all the things he brings to the table on the field, Williams, but also where he has room to grow off the field. But before we get to that, Patriots Chargers coming up. This game is fascinating to me for a couple different reasons, and I wanted to bring it up on Next Pats here. Is this Bill Belichick's next team? For me, if and when the Patriots and Bill Belichick end up parting ways, this is one of Bill Belichick's best options if he wants to continue to coach and, importantly, if he wants to break Don Shula's record. There are going to be a number of jobs that are open. We understand that. Not many of them are going to offer Bill Belichick the opportunity to win games, and a significant number of games, right away. That ain't happening in Carolina. That ain't happening in Washington. That ain't happening in Chicago. It might happen in LA. You have a quarterback there. You have talent that is under contract there on both sides of the ball. And the quarterback in particular is the one that stands out to me because I believe with better coaching, and I'm not even talking about specifically offensive coaching. I'm talking about fourth down decisions, timeout decisions, game management, clock management decisions. With better coaching, this quarterback is a quarterback that would have already, to this point in his career, won a lot more. Here's what Bill Belichick had to say about Justin Herbert in his Wednesday press conference. He says, offensively, Herbert can do everything you need a quarterback to do. He's very athletic, can make all the throws. He went on to say, Herbert spreads the ball around a lot, besides Keenan Allen. But Allen obviously is the go-to guy. But after that, they give a lot of touches to the other receivers, the tight ends, the backs, and it creates some explosive plays. Herbert creates some plays on his own when there really isn't anything there. He pulls something out with a scramble or an extended play or throwing into tight coverage that there aren't too many guys who can get it in there, but he can. If you're Bill Belichick and one of your goals is to be number one on the all-time wins list, you're looking at the Chargers. Now, the one drawback to the Chargers, in my opinion, is that the Spanos family, ownership there, not exactly known for paying top dollar. And I think that's putting it lightly. However, how are things going to end here with Bill Belichick and the Patriots? Because if he's fired, the Kraft family's on the hook for whatever Bill Belichick doesn't get from his new team in terms of matching the salary that he's under contract for with the Patriots in 2024. So our Tommy Karn has reported Bill Belichick's under contract through 2024. My guess is his salary for 2024 will continue to pay him among the most expensive head coaches in all of professional sports. If he gets fired and he goes to LA and the Spanos family says, as long as we're paying you a head coach's salary, quote unquote, something that is commensurate with a head coach's salary, whatever Brandon Staley, for instance, is making now. And I don't know exactly what he is making, but say it's $5 million. That's on the low end for NFL head coaches, right? If they can pay that and the Kraft family's on the hook for maybe $20 million more, how is that not an ideal situation for Bill Belichick? You're still getting the money you were owed. And you're now coaching a roster that gives you a real chance to win a significant number of games. And on top of it, all-world grudge holder Bill Belichick might be tickled by the fact that his old bosses are still paying him to work at his new job. Now, does the Spanos family factor have a negative impact on Bill Belichick's chances of wanting to go to LA? Because maybe beyond 2024, they're not willing to pay him what he's used to if he wants to coach for 2, 3, 4 more years, right? So if he's under contract just for next year with the Patriots and the Kraft family's on the hook for that salary if they fire him, what does that mean for 2025 and beyond? Well, maybe you just cross that bridge when you get to it if you're Bill Belichick, because the talent might make you willing to be accepting of a less than perfectly ideal scenario. Again, a lot of this has to do with how the Patriots Bill Belichick relationship ends. And the way I look at it is if Bill Belichick knows that the Kraft family doesn't want him to be their head coach in 2024 and beyond, I'm not sure why he would be willing to work out a trade with another team. Kraft family might want to hold on to Bill Belichick right now in case they can work out a deal and get some compensation for Bill Belichick, especially after not getting compensation for Tom Brady. Boy, can you imagine watching both those guys walk out the door for nothing? That might be the hard pill that the Krafts have to swallow, but they may be forced to swallow it. Because again, if Bill Belichick knows he's getting fired, what's the Kraft family's leverage? They're going to hold on to him and ask him to coach again in 2024? They don't want that, I don't think. That's really their only leverage, forcing him to stay and execute the last year of his contract here in New England. But in so doing, are they not hurting their franchise in their own minds? You're going to let Bill Belichick control the draft, control free agency, and coach one more year just so you don't have to eat $20-ish million? Listen, I get it. I wouldn't want to eat that kind of money. But for the Krafts, that's sort of the cost of doing business, in my opinion, if you're an NFL owner and you want to move on from your coach. So they may love to get something in terms of compensation for Bill Belichick. But if I'm Bill Belichick and I know that my bosses want me gone, I'm not trying to find a new team and then say it's the Chargers. Well, I'd really like for the Krafts to get something for me. And so Spanos family, if you could send them a first round pick, and then I'll jump aboard after. And I'm cool with that. Yeah, I know it's our most valuable draft asset. And it's a pick that I'd love to use. But, history being what it is, 20 plus years, all that success, they deserve something as I walk out the door, right? I really don't see Bill Belichick handling it that way. If he knows the Krafts want him out, my belief is he would force their hand, get fired, have that money, that guaranteed money still coming to him wherever he ends up next. And then you get almost what the situation that the Patriots are in with Joe Judge or Matt Patricia or anybody else. You pay him a salary commensurate with their job, and then the previous team makes up the difference, pays them the rest of what they're owed. Again, not an ideal position for the Krafts to be in, but it might be where they are come the end of the season. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/NBCSB and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. MA 21 plus and present in MA. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. Okay, last point before we get to Cassel. Speaking of Justin Herbert, the guy who's gotten the most Herbert comps in this year's draft class, Drake May. And that's exactly who Dane Brugler has the Patriots picking with the number 3 overall pick in his first mock draft of the season. It is mock draft season, kids. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? It's like getting the decorations all set up in the house about a month or so before Christmas, as my family just did. You get that. You get those goosebumps. You get that little warmth in your soul. You know something good is coming when you see that first mock of the season. That's what we got from Dane Brugler. Drake May to New England. Brugler says, with their quarterback situation in shambles, the Patriots have a bottom 5 offense. In his 24 years as head coach in New England, Bill Belichick has never drafted in the top 5. And he might not be drafting for the Patriots in the top 5 this year. But this season is certainly trending in that direction, says Dane. That's the bad news. The good news, this is a great draft for a quarterback-needy team to own an early pick. May is a young player and not without his faults, but he has promising talent and more big-time throws on tape than any other passer in this class. And I will just add that Dane Brugler, one of my favorite draft analysts, has Drake May as his number 1 quarterback in this year's class, based on his latest rankings, ahead of Caleb Williams. So he has Caleb Williams going number 1 overall in his mock, but he has Drake May going 3 as his top-ranked quarterback. That's two, in my opinion, very talented, very smart draft analysts that have been on Next Pats in recent weeks and months, and Mike Renner and Dane Brugler, who both have Drake May as the top quarterback in this class. And let's not forget our guy, Emery Hunt, and his love for Jaden Daniels, who I like more and more the more I watch him. And it just makes me wonder, is Caleb Williams really the guy for the Patriots if he's available to them? Who better to ask than our guy, the Trojan man himself, Matt Cassel. Let's get him on here, talk some Caleb Williams. There he is, our great friend, Matthew Cassel. Matthew, thanks for being with us again on Next Pats, buddy.
Hey, this is a joy. Every time I get to see your beautiful face and we get to talk a little bit, it makes my day.
And 'tis the season. It's the season of joy. It's a season of bringing cheer to one
100%.
another as friends, cheer to our listeners as well. And people are going to really celebrate this episode of Next Pats, Matt, because you're the perfect person to talk to about Caleb Williams, fellow Trojan. Okay. But so while that gives you, I think, very good insight, and you covered him this year as part of your coverage for NBC, but you're also, we know you're going to give us the real deal. You're not going to give us a biased, slanted opinion just because you guys went to the same college. No, you're a trusted voice. You're a go-to guy when it comes to all things quarterback and quarterbacking opinion. So we know we're going to get the real deal straight from that mouth of yours.
Yes, I'm ready to give it to you.
Okay. Generational quarterback, Caleb Williams. Is that the word we're using? Is that appropriate? Yes or no?
I think it's a generational skill set that you don't see. He's unique in terms of he's got a vast skill set, and his superpower is his ability to extend plays, to make people miss in small spaces. I mean, you see it a lot of times in college football players. They have a free runner, the protection's not perfect, and they panic. But he has this calm, poised ability to make that guy miss and then do something crazy, but keeps his eyes downfield and create explosive plays. And you just don't see that across the board in college football or in any particular type of game. He's got an incredible arm. He can make all the throws. Now, I wouldn't say that he's one of those throwers. When you watch his throwing motion, he's as fluid as maybe some of these other guys like a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels. However, when you watch him, he puts the ball wherever he wants to put it with accuracy. And then the other part about it is he also excels in that zone read game, in the RPO game, the run pass option game, where he's been running it since he came in as a freshman. He knows it so well. He moves the back. So there's a lot of stuff that you look at Caleb Williams that is unique to Caleb Williams. But the big question mark that I think a lot of people have about Caleb Williams is how does that transfer into the NFL game? Because he's probably around 95, 96, maybe 100% in shotgun the entire time. You don't see him under center. You don't see him running the traditional sense of play action pass. It's all off of the zone read or the RPO game.
What's his biggest weakness then, Matt? Is it just that translatable skill set or maybe the difficulty of trying to translate his skill set to the NFL? Or is it something else? One thing I've read about him from our friend Rick Spielman, 33rd team, colleague of yours.
Right.
He says essentially that he likes to hold on to the ball in the pocket, and maybe he waits a little bit too long. Maybe he's a little too patient at times. What's his biggest weakness in your opinion?
Right. I think one of his biggest weaknesses is that he has so much confidence in himself to extend a play, to make the big play, that sometimes he'll bypass a wide open wide receiver. Like I was watching some film on him earlier in the season. We had him for the USC Notre Dame, which wasn't his best game. Don't get me wrong. And Notre Dame did a great job. But watching that film prior to that, there would be a go route on the outside and Taj Washington was running an out route and he was open right now. But for some reason, he bypassed him and said, you know what, I'm going to check down the field for something, held onto the ball a little bit longer, but then he extended the play, made 7 people miss, turned around and found a guy in the back of the end zone. So there's times where that confidence that he has in his own skill set, his ability to extend plays and look for that big play downfield, he'll bypass something that is within the structure of the offense. And I think it's hard sometimes as a coach because you're looking at him and when you see what his abilities allow you to do and how many big plays that you have, to say, hey, bud, you just got to throw the out route right here, right? Otherwise, but it resulted in a 30-yard touchdown pass, which was a highlight reel play. So I think that that's the challenge when you take a guy like Caleb Williams is how, one, are you going to structure the offense to fit his skill set? Two, how can you make him play discipline within the offensive structure?
It's interesting to read some of the comps that people will have for Caleb Williams. You know, we've heard Patrick Mahomes probably the most. Maybe that's because of the offense that he's coming from in college and because of the off-platform, off-schedule playmaking ability. But I've also seen Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Media talk about Josh Allen for some similar reasons, but maybe also because of some of the chaos that he injects into games himself as well. What's your favorite comp for Caleb Williams?
You know, there's little pieces of everybody's game. When they talk about Patrick Mahomes, I think that it's a fair comp just because of when you see that remarkable play, that he does things that other quarterbacks can't do. And he does it in a way in which it looks like he's playing reckless, but it's calculated, if that makes sense, right? It's the same thing when you see Mahomes roll to his right and fire a ball back across the field to his left, and you go, that is like rule 101 in quarterbacking. Don't do that. Don't throw back across the field, but he makes it go and he understands what he's doing. And then when you talk about Josh Allen, obviously there's a major size difference there. But what they're saying is one of his strengths is his legs. Like when he tucks the ball and goes and runs, he becomes a runner of the football. He makes people miss. He's savvy when he's out in open space. He knows when to get down, but at the same time, he's really good at being able to make teams and defenses play 11-on-11 football, because you've got to look at him and say, hey, if this guy pulls the ball, he's definitely a dangerous threat with his legs. So I understand these comps. And then I think that the Josh Allen comp is also where, when you watch Josh Allen early on in his development, maybe he might bypass things because of that big play mentality. And so once again, I understand the comps, but at the same time, Caleb Williams is kind of he's just a different animal, you know, like it's hard to make comps because his game has little pieces of each and every one. And he's also very authentic to himself.
All right. So we know the on-field positives, maybe some of the weaknesses in his game as well. But again, one of the reasons great to have you with us, Matt, is because you had the opportunity, I'm assuming now, ahead of that USC Notre Dame game, to talk with him as part of your production meetings and talk to others inside the program there at USC.
Right.
What do you make of the conversation that has surrounded this player, especially the last few weeks, where we see him crying with his mom after a game, recently opted not to meet with media after losing to UCLA, what everybody assumes is going to be his last game at Southern Cal? What do you make of some of the off-field concerns? And boy, okay, let's put the X's and O's and the translatability of his game to the side for now. Does that stuff translate? We're at a position you sort of need to be the face of the franchise. You need to be that CEO type. You need to be somebody that others can rally around. Does he have that, in your opinion, or do some of these instances that I just mentioned, do those give you pause?
Well, I think you have to look at his body of work when he's in college. And when you talk to people about him, when you talk to Caleb himself, I mean, this guy's the ultimate competitor. He cares. He loves the game. He's going to do whatever he can. And ultimately, he's used to winning, right? And it's tough sometimes when you go through the adversity, the stretch of games that they've had down the stretch where their expectation was to build off of last year, go to a national championship, and you can see it each and every week. He puts it all out there on the line, and you can see he never falters, he never wavers. You never see him unsettled on the sideline. It's always like, okay, boom, regardless of if it's a pick against UCLA that he's trying to throw a go route, the guy kind of gets in a better position, goes up and gets it, but he comes right back and puts together a drive, throws a 78-yard bomb down the sideline to Rice. I mean, it's stuff like that you see, that adverse situations come up in a game and he's able to rally the team and he's able to put the team on his back. And that's what you look for. But I understand what people's knocks are, like, hey, why are you showing that emotion after a game? And for me, again, would I do that? Probably not. But the competitive nature of who this man is, I can understand emotionally how sometimes that can get to you. And that's part of growing up too, is understanding when to let those emotions show, when not to. I'd rather it happen in college and you be able to say, hey, look, moving forward, let's do it this way. And also with USC, I think that you go to that press conference, right? And you make sure that you sit up there and you take the bullets, because that's part of being a leader of the team. And that's also part of them advising him to do so, right? So you don't have this situation and don't create this narrative that he's one of these guys that is just, when things don't go well, he's not going to talk to the media. When things don't go well, he's not going to be the leader at the forefront of it, whether good or bad. So again, these are all growing opportunities, and this kid's in college. He's only been, and the other part about it is he's a young player, right? He's went in, played at Oklahoma for about halfway through the year. He went in. So really it's about just over 2 years of him as a full-time starter. So to see what he's accomplished in that small period of time, see what he's been able to do at a team going to USC with Lincoln Riley and being able to bring them back into national prominence last year, and then obviously this year throughout a majority of the season until they hit that slate of games where, look, the defense just wasn't good enough.
Matt, you've been in a lot of NFL locker rooms. Number one, do you think players that are Caleb Williams' future teammates are paying attention to how he's handled himself at the end of the season here? And if they are, and if maybe they have some concerns about, can this guy lead us? Is he on top of his stuff emotionally, or is he going to crack under pressure here as a pro? How quickly might some of that stuff melt away when they just see the performance on the field? Is it the kind of thing where as soon as he hits an 80-yard bomb in training camp, and the defense has a hell of a time trying to keep up with this guy, that, oh, okay, all that stuff from his last few weeks at USC, that's been forgotten now because it just turns out this guy is so damn talented?
Right. I think it's one of those things as players. Look, you don't pick your teammates. That's the organization. That's the evaluators and everything like that. And you might have your opinion about how you might handle that situation. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to the players in the locker room. If he's chosen to go to whoever it might be, comes into that locker room, shows that he's a good teammate, that he's relatable, that he's one of the guys, and then at the same time goes out there and performs at a high level, makes this team better, then you respect that, you understand it. And I don't think that anything that he has done in college up to this point will impact what his professional career eventually is, how he relates to his teammates, and what the result is overall in the chemistry within the locker room.
All right, Matthew Cassel, great intel from you, as always. We so appreciate it. We have no idea who's going to be making the next Patriots draft pick, but if Caleb Williams is available to them, whether they're picking 2, 3, 4, maybe they're all the way up at number 1 by the time the draft rolls around, which is crazy to think about.
Crazy
how quickly things have changed here in New England. But they're going to have some pretty nice options. We already talked about Drake May a bunch on this podcast. We talked about Jaden Daniels a bunch on this podcast as well. They're going to have plenty of capable, let's just put it, capable options at that position. Cassel, thank you so much, buddy.
You got it, bud.
Great discussion there with Cassel. Love having him on. And I really appreciate him acknowledging, despite his USC connections, that what we've seen from Caleb Williams in terms of the off the field stuff, meeting with the media or choosing not to after a loss, after what might have been your last college game of your career, crying in your mother's arms after a loss, which I won't kill him for. I'm happy that somebody cares about their team and about the game in the way that Williams apparently does. And you heard Cassel say it there, the ultimate competitor. I appreciate that, and I respect that. Where I might be wary to draft him if I'm the Patriots is if I can avoid it. I want to avoid drafting a quarterback at the top of the first round who's going to be the next face of my franchise, who still has a lot of growing up to do. And I get it. These guys are in their early 20s. They all have growing up to do, especially as they continue to, with the new NIL deals in place, now coming into life as pro football players, as they get more and more money in their bank accounts. This is difficult stuff to try to navigate as a young human being. But if I'm the Patriots and I feel as though immaturity in some ways has plagued this locker room in New England for the last couple of years, and I think it has, and if I'm a team like the Patriots where I wish my quarterback in adverse situations was mature beyond his years, as I know Patriots leadership does? Do I want to invest in somebody who I still have some questions in that area about? Or am I looking for someone who, yes, is supremely talented for sure, but maybe slightly less talented than Williams, but might have elite makeup? And I'm not saying Williams doesn't have that. I want to be careful as we discuss this here, because there are a couple of high-profile situations that Williams has dealt with in the last couple of weeks. And maybe there will be more before we get to draft season. But until we have a more full picture on him, I think it is fair to question, is that exactly what you want at that position specifically if you're New England? And the reason why I specify if you're New England is not just because of what they've dealt with at that position and in the locker room at large over the last couple of years. It's because the situation here is probably not going to be good for a while. It's going to be difficult. Life is going to be hard to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots in 2024 and probably 2025. You should be all in on trying to find someone at that position who can handle that. And it is possible to survive a bad situation, come out the other side, find success, both individually and as a team. I actually just, with a quick blow through the last 30 years of NFL drafts and looking at quarterbacks. Here's a list of players that I found who entered into truly horrible situations, in my opinion, at least on paper. They looked bad. And yet, they came out the other side, found real success. Let's start with Drew Bledsoe. 30 years ago, Steve McNair, Peyton Manning, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow, and I'll even throw CJ Stroud in there. The Texans situation looks a little bit better now, and they maybe had a better offensive line than I was willing to give them credit for coming into the year, but nobody thought Nico Collins was anything. They had Tank Dell, a third-round receiver. Robert Woods. Yeah, that's not a great situation, and they've turned that thing around. So all those players came into bad situations, found real success. Now, again, that's a 30-year span, and it's not many names. But I think you'd find that the list of young quarterbacks who found immediate success because of great situations is even shorter. Because in my opinion, it's really hard to build a great situation. And this is why I would argue when you're drafting this highly and you have this quarterback class staring you in the face, that by all accounts seems to be really strong at the quarterback position, you jump at the chance to take a quarterback. Even though the situation might be horrible. There's too many variables. It takes too long. It's really hard to align timing-wise to create the great situation and then drop the quarterback in the middle of it. Especially if you're hoping to get a quarterback who has real talent. Because if you have a great situation, odds are your team isn't terrible, even if your quarterback is. Joe Flacco, for instance, he's one of the quarterbacks I found who basically immediately had success. First round pick, 18 overall, goes to the Ravens. He's dropped into a good team in Baltimore. Dante Culpepper, back in the late 90s, dropped into a good Vikings team, a playoff caliber Vikings team, and then helped elevate it. Ben Roethlisberger, same deal. Good roster situation. They go from Tommy Maddox to Ben Roethlisberger. What do you know? They take off as soon as they add a competent rookie quarterback into that mix there. Mark Sanchez, Andy Dalton, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy's a great recent example. All these guys had year one success because the situations were great. I just think it's really hard and it can take a long time to create that great situation. And even then, as you're pursuing that, is there any guarantee of you actually being able to execute it? Is there any guarantee that you're going to hit on those receivers, on those offensive linemen, on the defensive pieces that you need to be a really solid across the board situation so that you can add a Prescott in the middle rounds or a Purdy in the late rounds and get good production from those guys? You can try. Might take a while, and there's no guarantee that it works. You know, for me, I'd be willing to hope that I nab the next, even if these guys aren't championship level quarterbacks. Certainly be worthy of a top 3-ish pick. If you end up with a Drew Bledsoe or a Steve McNair or Matthew Stafford, I mean, you'd be lucky to find these guys. Josh Allen, those are bad situations that those guys elevated. Then as those teams built around those players, especially the ones that are on cheaper contracts like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, now CJ Stroud, the Texans are going to have a massive window here over the course of the next 5 years where they're not paying the quarterback ungodly money, and they can spend around him, continue to build that thing. That's what I would be trying to do if I'm the Patriots. So you're looking for the elite talent. You're looking for the elite makeup, in my opinion. And if that guy's there, even if the situation's horrible, even if you don't have any of the 3 Ps available to you, you take him anyway. And you hope you can add pieces around him. You hope you can fill out those Ps as time goes on. And you're a better team for it. All right, guys, that's it for the Next Pats podcast for this week. We will hit on all these topics, I'm sure, again and again and again over the course of time. But great to have Matt Cassel on to tell us more about Caleb Williams. Interesting mock draft from Dane Brugler with Drake May. Patriots going up against maybe the precursor to Drake May in today's NFL and Justin Herbert. Fascinating to hear Bill Belichick talk about him. Think about Belichick maybe in the baby blue sweats next year out in LA, coaching up Justin Herbert. Fascinating stuff. This team continues to be interesting, guys. Even at 2-9, we'll be here to track it all on Next Pats. Keep an eye out for the next Pats episode next week. We'll talk to you then.